search is on to crown one British bakery the best, scouring the length and breadth of Britain, looking for truly talented artisans.
Every time you strive to perfection, and that's what I love about it.
And champions of tradition, proudly baking their local specialities.
That's good Yorkshire baking, is that?
36 have been chosen. 4 weeks of trials will push each bakery to their limits. Professional pride is at stake. Some will rise.
That's the perfect brownie.
Others will flop.
Go and do it again. Throw it away.
Just one will win. Britain's best bakery. On the hunt for Britain's best bakery, our expert judges. Mitch Turner, whose cake-making expertise has earned her an MBE for services to the catering industry.
I've made cakes all my life. I want to meet people with a passion for what they do really well.
And Peter Sidwell, an award-winning artisan baker, author, and one of the country's leading bread experts.
I want to see breads and bakes made properly, and I want to see them made with love, care and creativity.
Today, they continue their quest for excellence by heading to the West Midlands. The Midlands are famed for the godfather of the British pudding, the Bakewell tart. Here, 3 competing independent bakeries who've been nominated by their customers are desperate to earn a place in this week's regional final. Challenge number 1 is first impressions. The contestants must demonstrate they have interesting products, attractive shops, and knowledgeable staff. And our first baking contenders are Hindleys, a brother and sister team with 9 members of staff. The destination is Lichfield, just north of Birmingham, once described by its most famous son, Samuel Johnson, as a city of philosophers. But what will this bakery leave our judges thinking?
Oh, look.
Look at that. Everything out on display.
Yeah, it's
just going to entice you in.
What a really lovely traditional bakery. It's got this wonderful smell that evokes memories of kind of farmhouse bread.
Well, it's a lovely smell, yeah. Coming down the street in the morning to work, you start to get the smell sort of 100 yards up the street. You can't wait to get here and get it.
You've got to make that smell, haven't you?
You
got the
bake everything on site?
Yeah.
Duncan and Jackie's family have been baking cakes in Lichfield and across Staffordshire since 1893.
We're all in this together, so we've got to get it right.
And all those years of British baking experience don't go to waste.
There are some recipes we still use, and the Genoese sandwich is one, and shortbread's another.
They might have one foot in the baking past, but the others firmly in the present.
People want far more range of breads, like walnut breads or sun-dried tomato breads.
What kind of caught my eye as I was walking in was this fruit bread down there. Oh, wow, look at that. Yeah. Absolutely packed full of fruit. Oh, smell that.
It's kind of like hot cross bun in a bread, isn't it?
I mean, I think this is real British baking at its best.
Nose.
I always have flour
Sugar
on my
on your
nose.
nose.
Yeah, always.
The Hindleys tea cake is a comforting classic. The recipe is a family favourite and includes the all-important cup of black tea.
So it should be good.
I just took a great big bite there and I went straight through a pecan, which is great. Lovely bits of fruit in there, really spicy and flavoursome. It is like a hot cross bun, but better.
It's really delicately perfumed with spice. It's not overpowering, but it is spicy. It's a spicy, moist, fruited bread.
Well done, I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you.
It was like a great British bakery, wasn't it? Lovely brother-sister dynamic, built on this real huge heritage, nearly 120 years of baking. If that doesn't say something, nothing does.
The traditional family bakery has made a good impression. How will our second competitors fare? Bakery number 2, Sweet As, run by 2 chocoholic best friends, Jenny Hudson and Lucy Swindles. The fashionable Regency town of Leamington Spa is a fitting location for this sweet oasis. Will our judges be impressed?
I love cake. You love chocolate.
What's not to love about this
Recipe
place?
for a winner. Is it a challenge that everything in the shop has to have some chocolate in it somewhere?
Yeah, that's my personal challenge, but I think probably 90% of what we do has got chocolate in it, because everybody loves chocolate, don't they? So we try and, you know, feed the customers as much chocolate as possible.
Yeah.
Sweet As opened in 2005 and already has a loyal following.
Rocky Road cheesecake.
Rocky Road cheesecake, okay, no problem.
Jenny's impressive CV includes stints at Claridge's and the St Martin's Lane Hotel. But her passion for one thing in particular has never waned.
Chocolate in my heart, through and through. And then I've got Lucy, obsessed with chocolate too. I think, you know, life without chocolate is just not worth living, is it?
Jenny, did your concept start from a single brownie?
Well, the chocolate cake was the first product, but then moved quite quickly to brownie. Started with one, and now we've got 7 flavours.
Pete's clocked one that he's got his eye on.
Yeah, one's screaming out at me, yeah, at the moment.
Go on, I'll hold them for you. You can choose.
The exact recipe for Jenny's award-winning brownie is secret. But the trick to a perfect brownie is down to correct temperature and cooking times to ensure a rich, dense bake with a gooey texture.
Lovely.
That literally melts in the mouth.
Once you break through that crust, it just kind of goes whoosh.
It's a dark chocolate, but it's not overly bitter.
Yes, exactly. We use 53%, which means that we don't need to add too much sugar.
Right. What a boutique. You know, they've picked one thing and they've just totally gone down that route, totally committed to chocolate. I'm not sure whether it's kind of the whole package, though, because breads doesn't really seem to play a part in it, and we're looking for Britain's best bakery.
We are looking for Britain's best bakery, but is it enough to be a jack of all trades when you can be a master of one?
The passion at Sweet As has certainly got the judges thinking. Now they've just one more competitor to inspect. It's time to meet Robert and the team at Swift Artisan Bakery. The destination is Ludlow, a thriving market town in Shropshire, close to the Welsh border. How will its favourite bakery be judged?
What a lovely bakery you have.
Got a real kind of French influence here. I mean, have you made a conscious effort to kind of move away from the traditional baker?
To try and put the two together.
Right. So you're kind of keeping the core traditional British classics, the everyday breads?
Yes, but try and work in different ones, like your French range, Italian, and then bring in our own specialities. So people come through the door, they never know necessarily from one week to the next what they'll be able to see.
Swift is run by 4th generation baker Robert. Baking's been in the family since 1863, when Hannah Swift began down the road at Wheaton Aston.
If you want to be classed as artisan bakery, then you need to try and show your craft as far the way through the production as you can.
But using ingredients like curry, chilli and beer, Robert certainly likes to experiment.
It's shaped like this to mirror the beer bottles that it comes in.
Robert's identified a niche for artisan baking with a twist.
You need to put something out there that makes you stand out, that makes you different.
And Robert's confident that his creative bakes will impress the judges.
I think we have a good chance.
In front of me here, we have strawberry and rose petal cheesecake. They look adorable. They drew me in, and yes, please, I would like to try one. Wow. I mean, visually, it's just so beautiful.
This cheesecake is baked on a baked amaretti and ginger biscuit base, but the mascarpone topping doesn't go anywhere near the oven and sets in the fridge overnight.
We'll add some chocolate at the end just to finish it off.
But will cake expert Mitch be impressed?
I'm going in. That is divine.
Really light and fluffy and moorish.
Oh, the bite from the amaretti right at the end on the biscuit. And it's not overly gingery, but it's really, really creamy.
He knows, look at him. He's tasted a few. He knows how nice they are.
That has to be one of the nicest things I've ever eaten.
What a lovely, lovely bakery.
It was awesome, wasn't it? I got my bread, you got your cake.
I'm telling you, if every product in that bakery was as good as that cheesecake, they're a real contender for this competition.
With all the bakeries impressing early, there is no let-up in the pressure, as the judges put all the contestants to work, cooking their speciality bake. The West Midlands is the setting for today's culinary contest between 3 local bakeries competing for the title of Britain's best. And it's time for our contenders to show off the item that really sums up their business. Our second challenge is the speciality bake. The judges want to be served each bakery's very best. First, it's over to Lichfield, to the brother and sister team at Hindley's Bakery.
£3.25 change, thank you.
Regulars here certainly know what they like.
Walnut loaf is absolutely gorgeous. Anyone who likes a nutty loaf like that is the best one I've tried.
My wife's very keen on cream cakes and I like their sausage rolls.
But Duncan and Jackie can only serve up one of Hindley's favourites as their speciality bake.
Our speciality bake's a walnut loaf.
Using white, wholemeal and rye flour with a white and rye starter, walnut bread perfectly befits this traditional English bakery.
It's a definite fave, yeah.
I love a really good walnut bread. All that crunch in the dough, it's just one of those great combinations. I have big expectations because I make a really good walnut loaf.
Well, there's a gauntlet.
I mean, ultimately what I don't want to see is the walnuts playing a bit part in this.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to make walnut bread, commit to the walnut.
But before Duncan can commit to the walnuts, he has to make the dough.
We used 3 different flours. First the white flour, and then also we add some wholemeal to give it some nice depth and colour.
To that, he also adds rye flour, followed by an old fermented sourdough to help the dough rise and add a depth of flavour. A good splash of water, as well as walnut oil, salt and yeast. Too little water, the bread will end up tight and hard. Too much, and it will be overly soft and claggy. After a quick consistency check, it's time to add the walnuts. Nuts have been used in baked goods since medieval times. These naturally occurring ingredients were plentiful and easy to preserve through colder months of the year.
It's a fully flavoured bread. However, it's not overpowering. The bread shouldn't take over from the filling because that's obviously what the bread is there to enhance.
Happy with the balance of flavours, Duncan turns his attention to texture. The trickiest part is ensuring the walnuts are thinly sliced enough to get spread through the loaf, but not so fine they lose their distinctive crunch. A mistake that will drive Judge Peter nuts. After the dough has reached the right consistency, it's left to prove for a full fermentation and a rich flavour.
Just going to put a dusting of flour on it and just a little notch in the top to help it open up a little bit during baking.
Costing £2.25, Duncan's walnut bread is a firm customer favourite. Hindley's sell 200 of these loaves every week.
This loaf here is the best one, and that's the one we're going to give to the judges.
This relatively simple loaf will have to do a lot to impress walnut bread connoisseur Peter.
Go on then, I know you're itching to pick it up. Do your thing, tap it on the bottom.
Hear that sound? I'm sure it's already been tapped, hasn't it?
It's been tapped.
Yeah. It's the only way to tell, you know, to really
right.
tell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let's cut this open. I'm going to cut a few slices off because I want to see the walnuts all the way through. See, look at that. All 3 slices there. Walnut in all of them. Nice tight crumb. Nice and nutty. It's quite a light loaf, isn't it? It's not very dark, heavy.
It has a gorgeous sort of rose hue. It's lovely and soft, isn't it?
And then you've got those lovely walnuts, the crunch, but then the creaminess of some of them in the middle as well.
It adds something to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it's a really nice loaf of bread. It had a nice crust, wonderful flavours with the blend of flours. I like the light crust to it. I just felt it needed that extra oomph of walnut.
I was really pleased with what they had to say. Nice, genuine comments. It was really good to have.
Next up, it's the chocoholic best friends Jenny and Lucy at Sweet As in Leamington Spa. In business for 7 years, this friendly partnership certainly has passion for what they do. But what do their customers think?
Sweet As has this enormously gorgeous smell as soon as you walk in, the smell of baking and chocolate.
I particularly love the orange brownies. They're just amazing.
So what will business partners Lucy and Jenny pick to represent their burgeoning business?
Is it something with chocolate?
Of course, yes. It's our chocolate cake, which is sandwiched and finished with ganache.
This cake is a sandwich sponge with lashings of ganache, wrapped in a chocolate collar, finally topped with ruffles of milk and white chocolate. Will it be enough to impress our judge Mitch, who's baked cakes for the Queen and Gordon Ramsay?
Do you think a chocolate cake is enough for a speciality bake? Because it's, you know, ultimately, it's a chocolate cake.
I don't think it's just a chocolate cake.
Right.
I think it's more than just a chocolate.
It's a few more bells and whistles on it.
Yes. Hopefully this hits the mark.
My heart sank a little bit for them because I know you can nail a chocolate cake, and I'm kind of thinking, wow, this is some challenge for them to make sure that you're impressed by a chocolate cake. I'm looking forward to seeing this one.
So the pressure's on for Jenny and the team.
It's one that we created a couple of years ago for Christmas, and it's been so popular with the customers that we've just carried on making it.
Jenny starts by preparing a ganache, a mixture of cream and chocolate, which will form the middle and topping of the finished cake.
The chocolate looks a bit like it's not quite going to melt properly, but it always does.
Chocolate cake can be traced right back to 1764, when Dr. James Baker discovered how to mill cocoa beans fine enough for baking. Now it's time for the cake sponge, which is made by mixing sugar, butter, and slowly adding eggs so the mix properly bonds. Getting this wrong would result in a flat, flavourless, heavy sponge.
That way we're keeping the real chocolatey flavour without it being too bitter.
Next, it's plain flour, cocoa powder, and bicarbonate of soda that gets slowly fed into the mix, followed by the rest of the melted chocolate.
Because we've got to put it in at the right speed. We can't chuck a load of flour in and then chuck a load of liquid over the top. It's got to really bind properly.
Then it's sieved to remove any lumps of flour and to ensure the mixture is silky and smooth. Getting this wrong would be a sin cake expert Mitch would not forgive. After the sponges are baked, it's time for decoration. The ganache is generously applied through the middle and all over.
Like a chocolate dream.
Next, Jenny adds what she hopes will really impress the judges. Melted chocolate is poured onto marble, thinly spread, and as it sets, it's shaped into a collar and ruffles to finish the cake. A Sweet As chocolate cake will set you back anywhere from £15 to £800. This one retails at £40.
And that's it.
But will it meet the judges' exacting standards?
Wow, lovely. Beautiful looking cake. Oh, now see, that's interesting. When I'm cutting down there, it's cutting really nicely through that chocolate collar. There we go.
Wow.
That's a real intensive chocolate, isn't it?
Very indulgent.
That's a really intense mouthful of chocolate, but it's not overpowering. You don't come away feeling really, really heavy. It's a really moist cake.
It's got a lovely feel to it as well.
Chocolate cake is one of those fundamentals that so many people love, and it can quite often not deliver. And to have a good chocolate cake that you come away feeling satisfied is not an easy thing to achieve. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet as. They pulled it off.
That was a serious chocolate cake.
Yeah, it was a great chocolate cake. I thought it delivered on all levels.
And these guys are real contenders.
The secret is now out that we're actually chocoholics.
Yeah.
Finally, it's to Swift, the fourth-generation Ludlow bakery that inspires the palates of its patrons.
Swift's has such a fantastic range of bread. There's always something there that I can't resist.
I like Swift's bread because it's different, it's tastier, it's freshly made.
But Robert can only put one of his many rising stars to the test.
Well, speciality bake that we're going to bake for you is our Shropshire brown loaf.
This Shropshire brown loaf contains white and wholemeal flour, wheat flakes, and 3 types of malt for an earthy, nutty flavour.
It's an everyday loaf that we sell on the shelf. But it is an either you love it or you hate it type of loaf. If you like it malted, we have a lot of people that travel a long way, buy it in bulk and take it home. Then there are other people that just don't like it, so...
Looking forward to trying it.
Thank you.
He bakes this every single day. It plays a permanent part in his bakery on that shelf. It's got to be good if it's going on there every day.
Risky thing to put in for a speciality bake, something that he knows has a temperament to maybe not please everybody.
The Shropshire brown loaf is unique to the Swifts. It was developed by Robert 30 years ago and has remained a controversial talking point ever since amongst customers.
You can get malted loaves of bread, but not anything that's to this degree.
Robert begins by adding equal quantities of white and wholemeal flour. Too much wholemeal and his loaf will end up heavy and dense. He adds the combination of 3 types of malt grain, the last being chocolate malt, which provides colour and a very distinctive flavour.
It's quite a deep, almost bitter flavour. That bitterness you get off a very dark, sort of 75% chocolate. When you smell it, almost reminds me of cigars.
The ratio of malt to flour is also key. Too much malt will produce a claggy texture, but too little, and the malty flavour will just disappear.
It has a very deep flavour to it, and with the malted wheat flakes that we work in it and put round it when it's baked, gives a nice, nutty, crusty flavour to it.
He adds a little sourdough and mixes. Then he adds water to ensure the wholemeal flour stays moist.
I want to make sure it's got a nice, smooth sheen and finish to it when it's mixed.
It's a delicate balance, because too much moisture will prevent it cooking properly.
It's looking pretty good at the moment.
Once Robert is satisfied, he then kneads the dough. Then he leaves the mixture to prove.
It's more than doubled in size since we put it to rest. So now it's had time to sit, you can smell all the malts.
It's cut into loaf-sized portions, then rolled out and dipped in wheat flakes. Robert sells 80 Shropshire brown loaves every week for £1.85. Serving up such controversial fare to our judges is brave. Will they love it or hate it?
Wow, I was expecting it to be quite heavy. It's not, it's light.
Oh. There we go.
Oh,
God,
wow.
look how dark that bread is. All the way.
Particularly tight crumb. It's got some nice air pockets in there.
Yeah.
Give it a squash, springs straight back. That means the loaf is cooked right the way through.
The crust is really even all the way round.
It's got that real malty smell. Mmm.
That's a little bit bitter for my taste.
Is that? I like it. I think it's got its place.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it every single day of the week, but I think it's got its place. I mean, it'd be lovely with some butter on it and some cheese, you know, a bit of chutney, you know, because that sweetness would work really well, you know, the chutney against the bitterness of the bread. Do you know what? Well-made loaf of bread. Well done.
Thank you.
He said himself it was a love or hate loaf of bread. I loved it. Did you hate it?
I didn't hate it, but I wouldn't choose it, I wouldn't buy it, I wouldn't run back for it. I didn't love it.
But they appreciated the loaf of bread, so I think they went away happy with what they'd seen.
So Duncan's walnut bread and Robert's Shropshire loaf both received mixed reviews, while Jenny's chocolate cake at Sweet As really impressed both judges. Now things are about to get tougher as the contestants take on the judges' surprise dish in the Baker's Dozen Challenge. Today's battle is hotting up in the West Midlands. With a place in the regional final at stake, the three contestants have one last chance to persuade the judges it should be theirs. It's time for today's Baker's Dozen Challenge. The contestants have only 3 hours to prepare a bake of the judges' choice. The results will be assessed on quality and consistency. They must make 13 and show 13, so there is no margin for error. Today's Baker's Dozen is the Bedfordshire Clanger, cousin of the Cornish pasty, traditionally made from suet pastry with beef at one end and sweet apple at the other. Our bakers are allowed to pick their own fillings, so the challenge will be balancing the sweet and savoury flavours.
Is this something you are familiar with?
Can't say it's anything I've ever come across or made before, ever.
I've never heard of a Bedfordshire Clanger before.
Right. This is kind of your opportunity, though, to show what you can do beyond your comfort zone, maybe.
Fingers crossed.
Is that something familiar to you?
Never heard of one.
So 100 years of baking, not one clanger?
No, not one clanger.
With none of the bakeries having heard of this 18th century classic, they hit the most up-to-date cookbook in the world. The internet.
Oh, it is like a pasty, isn't it?
Attractive.
Basically, it's kind of like a sausage roll. Okay. It sounds fairly straightforward.
I mean, this is going to be a real challenge for these guys. Not one of them has come across it. So, I mean, it is really going to help you and I differentiate between the three bakeries.
Once finished, the Baker's Dozen will be delivered here, to the Hawksyard estate in Staffordshire. Dating back from the 13th century, it's here our judges Mich and Peter will tuck into the finished fare and declare one bakery today's winner. First, it's a test of their technique with the suet pastry. Our judges are looking for a light and fluffy consistency. Chocoholic Jenny at Sweet As needs to brush up on some old skills quickly.
We don't make that much pastry here, so I'm kind of a bit out of practice of it, so this is a good challenge.
She's following a classic suet pastry recipe, mixing the flour, salt and suet before grating the butter in to achieve the crumb-like texture required for this type of pasty.
One of the tricky bits for the pastry will be having the pastry salty enough for the savoury part, but not too salty for the sweet part. So we've got to make sure that we balance the flavours correctly.
Over at brother and sister run Hindley's, Duncan's got a trick up his sleeve and is using pie flour. It's got a lower gluten content and should result in pastry with a lighter texture.
Just want it to just literally come apart like that. Nice short, no developed gluten in there.
Happy with the texture, he rolls his pastry out and leaves it to rest.
We're all really excited about producing a clanger. It's a bit of a different challenge for us as bakers.
Over at Swift, things aren't going quite to plan.
Butter's got a little bit too on. It was far too soft, so I nipped it in the freezer and then didn't go and get it back out again.
With the suet pastry resting in the fridges, it's time for our bakers to get creative with their sweet and savoury clanger fillings. Over at traditional bakery Hindley's, Duncan and sister Jackie see no reason to mess with a classic and are sticking to beef.
We decided to use beef skirt because we're used to working with this particular meat and we're really pleased with the flavour.
Beef skirt is a flavourful alternative to braising steak that remains tender when cooked quickly. Jackie fries the onions while the meat is browned off. And Duncan's help isn't exactly what she orders.
Sorry.
He's a bossy little brother.
There you go.
Thank you. The meat's nice and browned off now.
I don't want it to get too wet, otherwise the pastry will not be able to hold it together and we might end up with a bit of a mess.
To enhance the flavour, she uses reduced stock and adds a dash of Worcester sauce.
I think it's there.
It's nice and tender, isn't it?
Really nice.
The girls at Sweet As are not sticking quite so closely to the traditional recipe, ditching the beef for ham.
For the savoury side, I'm going to do gammon, leek and potato in a white sauce. I think the flavours complement each other quite well.
But this takes Jenny's team into unfamiliar territory.
I've never dealt with the leeks in this kitchen before, anything really savoury, so the smells are going to be very different from what we're used to.
And going with a heavy sauce is risky.
We don't really want the white sauce leaking into the apples, so we've just got to make sure when we seal it, it's really well sealed.
With the sauce prepared, in go the rest of the ingredients.
It looks good actually, it's very appetising, it's making me hungry. Really happy with that.
Over at Swift, Robert has ripped up the recipe book and is getting creative with his Clanger's filling. For Robert, less is definitely not more.
We're really looking at more of a Sunday lunch in some pastry.
Robert's veg consists of potatoes, onions, carrots, peas, and he adds some aromatic flavours with herbs, rosemary and sage.
So hopefully when you put them all together, it should all work.
But Robert can't decide on the meat for his Sunday lunch, so decides to go for both pork and beef.
Trying to get the fat out of the beef because we don't want that to cook out when it's in the actual pastry, but we don't want to overcook this so when it's baking that it becomes too dry.
But juggling this many ingredients takes time.
If we've got to take 40 minutes baking into consideration, that means we've only got 40 minutes to get everything else done. That's a bit of a worry.
Back at Hindley's, it's on to the sweet section of the Clanger. And Duncan's once more keeping things traditional.
And we're going to be using apple and sultanas, and we're just going to put a little bit of cinnamon in it just to give it a nice spicy edge.
But perfectionist Duncan can't help but tweak things a little.
What about just perhaps a little bit of ground ginger, just to pep it up a little bit?
Good.
And at Sweet As, Jenny is back into familiar territory with her sweet filling. Again, she has decided to adapt the traditional recipe, using apples, but adding some seasonal local blackberries.
Very classic, very British, very simple.
Finally, Swift, where Robert's creative juices are really flowing, as he goes for a perfect complement to his Sunday lunch savoury side. To the standard apple recipe, he's adding orange juice, orange zest, and dates.
So what we're just trying to do is just make a few changes to what we've already got, so make it a little bit different, so we're not just copying somebody else.
And as if that's not enough, he finishes with red currants and sultanas.
As you can see, we've moved away a little bit from following the recipe. It's a calculated risk, let's put it that way, he says.
With the fillings at the ready, Jenny takes no chances when it comes to dividing her hard-fought-for pastry.
It's all about precision. Obviously, you want it packed, but it can't be seeping out, so we've got to get it exactly right. If it's not right, this could ruin it for us. So there's not much pressure.
With the 3 hours nearly up, each clanger is carefully sealed and placed into the oven.
Right, here we go, folks.
The filling.
With military precision, the Hindley's crew wrap up their clangers.
Plenty of meat in there. That's about the right proportions. Are we happy with that, guys? Yeah.
After getting the positive vote, the clangers get put into the oven. Over at Swift, Richard's creativity is getting the better of him.
Running out of time rapidly, so if you fancy like giving me a hand, that would be really good. I have to say this is one of the bizarrest things I've ever made, I think.
With just enough time left, he gets his clangers cooking.
Yes, we're all right.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Absolutely fine.
Oh, they smell good. That's fine.
And with their 3 hours up, there's no time for further experimentation.
It smells really nice.
All bakeries are packing their produce, hoping not to drop a clanger on the way to the judging venue, where they'll come face to face with their competitors for the first time before Mich and Peter's final decisive tasting. With the judges looking for quality and consistency, all 13 of each contestant's clangers must be presented.
Wow, look at that. It still smells so good.
Chocoholic sweet as are first to set up, and they'll need these clangers to wow the judges as much as their chocolate cake.
It's going to be a bit nerve-wracking the next hour or so.
Next to arrive, brother and sister team Hindleys, hoping their clangers make a bigger, bolder impression on Peter than their walnut bread.
Yep, excellent.
Last to arrive is artisan baker Robert from Swift. He's got creative with his clanger, hoping to make up for the mixed reaction he got for his Shropshire brown loaf.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident. Absolutely.
3 different bakeries, 3 very different takes on today's Baker's Dozen. But there can only be one winner. It's all in judges Mich and Peter's hands. Britain's best bakery is in the West Midlands, where 3 local bakeries have been fighting for a place in this week's regional final. And the climax of today's contest is here, at Hawks Yard Estate. All contestants are presenting their Baker's Dozen, their take on the Bedfordshire Clanger, and all have brought along loyal supporters to champion their cause.
It's just fantastic. I might save this one for my packed lunch tomorrow.
It's just nice to see other bakeries here as well, seeing what they interpret what a Bedfordshire Clanger is.
But only one can fight on in Britain's best bakery, and that's down to Mich and Peter. With 35 years of experience, the pair are on top of their professional game, and they are expecting excellence as they sample each bakery's offerings.
So let's get started over here.
The Swift Bakery are first up. Robert's daring and original Shropshire brown loaf speciality split the judges' opinion, so his Baker's Dozen needs to dazzle.
Yeah, good, we got 13.
And they're all a similar size. You know, they're not all perfectly exactly the same, but this is a hand-formed product.
The judges are hoping for succulent meat and moist fruit, separated and wrapped in light and crisp suet pastry.
This is nice and light.
They're looking for consistency and pick bakes at random to sample.
The herbs make that for me. Really pulls out the flavour.
It's very flavoursome.
Yeah. The orange is the most overpowering flavour that comes through.
Works really well.
So I've got the fruity end here.
That orange zest's really nice. Works really well.
There's a lot of pastry in there, isn't there? But I think you've still packed in a lot of flavour with the fruity side. Lovely balance of flavours. Touch on the dry side, if I'm honest.
Excellent, well done.
Next up, Sweet As. Their signature chocolate cake speciality really wowed the judges, but the clanger has forced them out of their comfort zone.
Consistency, Mr. P.
Yeah, well, they're all almost about all the same size, aren't they? I mean...
Hey.
With the Baker's Dozen, the judges are looking for our contestants to be inventive with their flavours and fillings.
That's really moist. Lovely flavour all the way around.
Yeah.
Sweet As have ditched the traditional beef and gone with ham in a cream sauce.
Nice chunks of gammon in there. Leeks are a really good addition in there, aren't they?
It's a great way of getting the spice and the flavour into it.
I think you could probably maybe season it a little bit more with some pepper. But I do like the fact that it's in a sauce. I think that really helps, that one.
It's really worked well. You really see the blackberries oozing through. And when you open it there, look, you get that lovely, real English summer.
Such a great combination, isn't it, blackberry and apple? Pastry just right as well to be able to carry that level of moisture, isn't it? That's worked really well. Good. Well done.
Thank you.
Finally, Team Hindley. Their walnut bread received mixed reviews. Peter would have preferred a bolder flavour. Duncan's traditional clanger needs to make a statement.
They are beasts. They're clangers.
They are a clanger.
Monster clanger.
Yeah. But we'll just check these with consistency.
They're a good size, aren't they?
Got that lovely sort of, tear down through the centre that just sort of oozes rustic charm. Going in.
Go for it, Turner.
Wow, look at that. That's what you'd call a meat clanger. Look at that.
Wow, nice chunks there. Very succulent beef, juicy. Pastry's really soft, isn't it? Yet quite crisp as well. Works really well.
And it stayed wonderfully moist against the pastry. Really lovely combination of flavours. Perfectly seasoned, because with that amount of pastry, you really need to pack in the seasoning.
Yeah.
And you've achieved that really well. Oh, I can't wait to get to the apple end now.
Oh, yeah. That apple is cooked perfectly. Just at that point where it's held together. Lovely flavour. It's not over sweet.
Really good.
Works really well. You must be pleased with our reaction, eh? Yeah.
Phew.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
A lot of food for thought.
Tasting over, the bakers now face a tense wait. To make their final decision, the judges must weigh up each contender, taking into account the visit to their bakery, their speciality bake, and their baker's dozen. Only one can progress to represent the West Midlands in the regional final. Mich and Peter must now decide which.
3 very different results.
Did one naturally become better than the other two?
Inside, a more pleasant task, tucking into the leftovers.
I think it's really nice. Nice flavour.
Swift's had a lovely looking bakery. Aesthetically from the outside, you couldn't draw one that's more idyllic. Really enticed you into the bakery, the lovely smells of what was going on. It was a real treat to visit. Swift's clangers had a really interesting flavour combination, which made for a tasty clanger.
I was a little bit let down by his clanger because I thought the pastry was too thick for the amount of filling inside. Sweet As, their speciality bake, they absolutely played to all their strengths, and they played a blinder, and it just delivered on every chocolate level possible.
It was really show-stopping. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by the clanger that Sweet As
I could have done with a little bit more seasoning. I mean, maybe that sort of highlights their lack of experience in sort of savoury cooking.
Hindley's had a fantastic bakery, lovely dynamics of the couple, fantastic role in the community. I thought it was perfect combination for a clanger. Lovely chunks of meat and gravy at one end, and then when you broke into the sweet end, you got the apple, you got the spices.
I think the way that they went simple, they had to deliver on all levels, and I really think they did on this one.
I think through all of this, one bakery has gently, gently risen to the top.
So I think we should go and let them know.
Okay. There can only be one bakery that we take through with us to the next round. And the bakery for this region is... Hindley. Well done, Jackie. You did well.
Absolutely over the moon. Yeah, really pleased.
The victorious bakery has the Hindley name above the door. And this is truly a triumph to be savoured for all the family.
We are very proud of what Jackie and Duncan have done.
Yeah, congratulations. Anyway, just very, very good at what they do. And they're very passionate about it. And it's their life.
Obviously gutted, but the standard of the people that are here today has just been fantastic.
A bit disappointing, but everybody's done a really good job.
To come out on top, fantastic.
What set Hindley's apart was the execution of the baker's dozen. They got all the elements right.
Hindley's for me were the full package, and I'm really excited to see what more they can do in this competition.
Next time, as the hunt hits the East Midlands and Staffordshire, 3 competing bakeries are in confident mood.
I think we are Britain's best bakery.
As they serve up unusual ingredients.
That's what I need. That should keep the judges happy.
And complex bakes.
I'm just trying to remember the rest of the recipe now.
But only one will progress as the search goes on for Britain's best bakery.